for being here and joining us in this new release of the webcast series Beyond COVID-19, created by the association No Peace Without Justice, in order to face some topics related to the ongoing pandemic, but on some particular angles that unfortunately are not so present in the mainstream media. So first of all, I'd ask to our audience, if you want to comment or share this event on the social media, please use the hashtag Beyond COVID-19. So today our focus will be on women's rights. So how is this pandemic affecting women's conditions and the human dignity of women all around the world? And what will be next for equal opportunity after the pandemic? Many international organizations state that COVID-19 is actually exposing and exacerbating gender inequalities around the world for several reasons that we'll try to focus on during this panel. So first of all, I would like to introduce our panelists, our speakers, and I would ask them to introduce themselves and explain what are they doing on this field of women's rights. So can we start with Leyla Hussein, psychotherapist and founder of Magul. Please, Leyla.
Hi, everyone. My name is Leyla Hussein. I'm a psychotherapist by background. I'm the founder of the Dahlia Project at Magol, which it's my work around mental health. So Dahlia Project is a counseling service that I set up for women and girls who have experienced female genital mutilation. So it's a specialist counseling service. But Magol is a enterprise company I set up a couple of years ago that looks at the well-being of organizations, companies, and individuals, basically. So that's what I've been working on. And so my background, I'm also a lecturer. I teach on this particular subject, especially on FGM. And I have been working with the Africa-led movement on ending FGM, and I've sat on different panels as an expert on violence against women and girls. So that's my background, and I'm glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thanks to you for being here. And then we have Isabella Mancini, who is the Deputy Director of Nosotras Onlus, an Italian Onlus. Please, Isabella.
Hi, good evening all. Well, Nosotras Association is an intercultural association of migrant and native women. It was born in the late 90s when the phenomena of female migration began to be more consistent. Today is around 52.4% of migrants regularly present in Italy that are women. And Nosotras arise from self-help groups that met in women's gathering place, in health advisory centers mainly, and today this place public, easily accessible, easily to use, are less and less economically supported by the public in favor of private health, and currently precisely these clinics are frequented by migrant women. Well, we work with women, for them in empowerment project, and my personal background is like a journalist.
Okay, thank you for being here. And then we have Natalia Garcia Caballos of the Association for Human Rights in Andalusia, Spain. Please, Natalia.
Hola a todo el mundo. Hello to everyone. Thank you for having invited me. So my name is Natalia Garcia Caballos. I am an activist at the Human Rights Association in Andalusia, APDHA. And this is a grassroots organization. We work in the whole region in southern Spain, in different areas. We work with migrants, we work with social exclusion, with people in prisons, with sexual workers, and education. And we have a very strong view of defending the human rights of those people who are most invisible for society. And we work with them, trying to find rooms so that the rights of everyone are respected.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you very much. So we can start before letting our panelists speak. I just would like to point out one thing, because Why is it important to speak about women's rights in this period of pandemic COVID? So it's relevant for many reasons, not only because the women represent the 70% of the health workforce globally, so they are the most exposed to the virus, but so women are also the first responsible of the care of all the people and children, so they are in a second front line from this point of view in this pandemic. And thirdly, the economic conditions of women is globally weaker than those of the men. So the economic crisis due to the pandemic can affect them very, very strongly. And I just would like to mention one article that was published by The Lancet in the middle of March. They are a group of experts in public health asking, making an appeal to the health organizations and the governments all over the world to try to study and read this pandemic with a gender lens, because only studying how this pandemic is affecting differently women and men, only in this way we could find equitable policies and interventions. So I would start with Leyla, Hussein, because I would like to ask you which are also now the psychological consequences of lockdown for women, and we are very interested in having a short focus on female genital mutilations because you're an expert about this topic, because maybe in this forced lockdown in some community, the female genital mutilation can be practiced more easily in a more hidden way. So please, if you can tell us something about this.
Thank you. I think, first of all, I think it's important to acknowledge actually what COVID-19 has proved to all of us, to the world, the problem with gender inequality, how our health system is broken, and who's affected by both sides. It's women and girls. So I think that's really important. I think this virus actually just proved that. If we thought women have come far, this virus has proved that that's not the case. So in terms of the psychological impact, those who are on lockdown would face is very simple. I mean, it's any kind of feelings that anyone who goes through any trauma, fear would be one, because this is actually extremely scary right now. And I think it's important, and I want people to understand these are feelings that we need to acknowledge. We cannot pretend it's not happening. So fear is very common, shock. Some people are extremely isolated, especially one of the other colleagues here who's speaking is talking about specifically around refugee and migrant people. And again, those particular group of people are even worse off in this situation. So a lot of people will be experiencing a lot of high anxiety, which they never have. Many won't be able to sleep. And I'm speaking, something that I'm experiencing myself. So this is affecting all of us. So we have to remember these feelings are real. It's happening. And we need to be okay with it for now. And it's important to remember this will pass. I know it's painful. I know it's hard. But it's reminding ourselves that this will pass. My suggestion would be, if you're having any of these feelings, and I think all of us are, the number one way of dealing with this, one, it's you really need to be kind to yourself. I know that sounds very blasé as I say it, like it sounds so simple. It's not simple. I know how hard that is. Some people are struggling to brush their teeth in the morning, and just doing that act of brushing your teeth, washing your face, just getting out of bed, it's a way of you being kind to yourself. So I think it's very important to remember that. And it's also important to remember that the level of screen that we have, like the amount of stuff that we're seeing on TV is not good for our mental health. I think it's important that we have, so for example, I listen to the 6 o'clock news and that's it, because it's too much information coming and not all of us are equipped to handle that kind of anxiety. So it's a way to minimize it. So the mental health issues with COVID-19 is very real. Some people are really going to suffer. I'm very concerned for our frontline staff who will be affected by this, especially, as you said, 70% of them are women. And that's really concerning. So in terms of with FGM, and I think all forms of violence, I think those numbers have risen. I'm actually I've been supporting online activists in Africa at grassroots level, where they've been feeding this to me, where, you know, like one girl told me a village cut 45 girls one morning because the authorities doesn't have time to look up to see that as an issue. And what's so worrying, what's so seriously worrying about this? Yes, this is a virus, it's killing people, and we have to be outraged, we have to deal with it. But what's shocking, and we need to really question this and challenge this, women are being killed every few minutes, but they don't get the same outrage. And that's extremely worrying. I wish we had this exact outrage that we have to COVID-19 to when women and girls are being killed. FGM happens every 11 seconds, a girl is being cut. And I think right now that number is going to exceed, 4 to 5 girls in one morning. So I can't really imagine in terms of how this is going to affect a lot of marginalized communities, especially in countries where there's lack of resource and finances, and especially with women. And I think it's important to also highlight, you know, women have always been put in the back burner, like they were always on the back room. But when you're a woman of color, it's even worse. So I think I'll stop there. I can keep going, but I wanted to hear from the other panelists too.
Okay, we will have a second round. Thank you so much. So Leyla mentioned also the migrants among the more vulnerable people, even in this lockdown and in this the social consequences of the pandemic. So I would ask to Isabella Mancini, so how is this lockdown affecting the rights of migrant women, and especially the caregivers, because we know that the majority of the caregivers are women and are migrants, and in Italy, for instance, their category of workers has been completely forgotten by the government measures, so it's like they don't exist.
It was the same in the UK, and that's been brought up as an issue.
Yeah, this is a very important issue, because we cannot forget them. They take care of our old people, of our children. So I would ask Isabella, how is this lockdown impacting them? And also something about domestic violence, because another thing that Leyla mentioned is that all kinds of violence are rising, violences against women. But we know that in this moment, many abused women are isolated at home with their abusive partners. So Isabella, can you tell us something about these three kinds of women and their rights?
Well, first of all, of course, this lockdown let us understand how dangerous has our home. It's not so safe. When we say we stay at home, we say safe. Well, it's not true for all the people, especially for women in condition of violence, and especially for people that live in a social and economical difficult situation. Well, I would like also to underline also the relationship between the Italian women emancipation and the arrival of migrant women here in Italy, especially Italian women entering in the world of work and thus generated jobs. And those family services that were outsourced in the past, this place of the market of job become the space for the migrant women works. And the question that you put with the program, lockdown on women's rights, is the real strong question that we have to answer. I started from the caregivers, but also I would like to make a little note about mothers, and sometimes the two things are not disconnected, caregivers and mothers. And they are among the categories of workers who can continue to do the work during the period of lockdown. And in the first moment, it was a very good news for them, because the family are upset and would like to be more connected with their chance that they will have a people inside home to protect their person at home. But after this big good first moment, what happened that the families began to feel the economical difficulties, to see that the current situation could continue for a long time in the future, and that the elderly are the most exposed also to the risk of the COVID-19. And therefore, there were either layoffs and removals, also because the employer's responsibility were unclear in this case. And this kind of workers doesn't receive until 2 days ago any support from the government. So they are out of all the things that the government decide to put on the ground to support the workers in these periods. And what about also the violence inside home? Because when you are at work 24 hours per day and without any distinction between the 3 hours holiday and workers' rights, you are inside something that is more similar to a jail instead of a place where you have to work. And this is something that afflicts a lot on a mental health situation, as Leyla said before. And until the mid of 2000, there was a lot of numerous studies conducted on health condition of women that works as caregiver in Italy. Many of them developed depressive tendencies caused by the way in which they work inside the house of Italian family. But many and the most vulnerable are the most blackmailed, that are the women without documents, that are forced to accept violence, abuse, harassment, and also physical violence, of course, inside the place of work and the house where they live. And of course, the situation of closure, forced isolation, difficulty also to give really strong kind of answer in this case is also a very big danger for them. And it's the same situation also for women. We just closed a meeting with the Minister of Equal Gender Issue and Justice a few minutes ago. There's a table that work on this kind of issue, especially on about the violence against women. And the main all the part of the government is the discussion in this table is to commit a very strong and national landscape that could help women to give the same answer from the north of the Italy to the south of the country, because it's something that is very strange that you have one answer in Milan and a totally different kind of answer for the same situation of violence in the south of the country. It's something that doesn't have to be in the future.
Yeah, this pandemic showed us that Italy is not united yet, because we have huge differences all over the country. Also, Europe is not united yet, maybe we can say. Thank you, Isabella. And so we are speaking about, let's say, vulnerable women, which are obviously the most affected by this terrible situation. And so I would ask to Natalia Garcia Caballos, what is happening to women living on informal economy? Your association is dealing with, for instance, women that beg, sexual workers, so the women who are considered the last ones, and also the single mothers who live in exclusion context. So what is it happening now to them during this pandemic and lockdown? Natalia, you have to switch on the audio, sorry.
I'm sorry, that's right. I was saying that's a very good question. We are very concerned about all those people living on informal economies here in southern Spain. And as you suggested, we're talking about sexual workers, about scrap collectors, about those women that beg as a strategy of survival, and those who are single mothers in the context of social exclusion. All of them in the past, they were already very invisible for most of the society. They do not exist for social security, for example, and they're out of the radar of most of the social services. And right now with the COVID-19 situation, the situation is really precarious. we need to think about what happens when you don't have a house. You live in substandard housing and they ask you to do a lockdown. We need to think about what happens when the state is asking you to wash your hands and keep a really wonderful hygiene, and there's no water or electricity in your house. How are these families surviving? How are these women surviving? And this is the reality for many people in southern Spain. People whose strategies of survival are informal, and they're seeing themselves with no income at all, with no help from the state in most of the cases, and with a very difficult living situation. Sexual workers, for example, they describe the situation as without rights, clandestine, and criminalized. Their option, and I think this is an example of how people they're looking for ways out in order to survive, was to create a solidarity fund in order to try to resist during these times. But many of the people they haven't had this option, and there are people, there are hungry people right now in our cities, in our villages, in our region. There are people who are sick and don't know it, and who cannot keep the basic recommendations that they're given to each of us. And finally, I would like to mention the situation of single mothers in context of exclusion. These mothers who don't have works, who don't have jobs, who need help in order to eat every day, and who have kids at home too. They have children, and they need to leave their house in order to go and pick up food outside of their homes several times in a week with the children, because that's the only way of getting food every week, and to feed the children. The different administrations, both at a local, regional, and state level, are not answering, and they're not guaranteeing the rights of these people who are living here in Spain on informal economies, and who were already in a very difficult situation. They come from a situation of inequality, but right now the situation is cannot continue anymore.
On mute. Sorry, I had the mute. So is it true that this situation is actually worsening and exacerbating gender inequalities? So we can say that. So thank you, Natalia. So far we thought about the problems. I obviously am aware that we cannot easily talk about the solutions, but in this second round that I would like to listen to you again, I would ask you, I would like you to give, to leave us your personal powerful take-home message. So a couple of minutes to tell something or little solutions for these big problems, or just a message that you want to leave to our audience. Please, Leyla, I will start from you.
Yeah, I mean, it's really difficult to be, you know, to give advice to people who are clearly suffering. But this might sound like a very a statement just off the cuff, you know. But I think this idea of being kind to yourself is so important in the state that we're in right now, because it's the only thing we can actually do for ourselves. And those of you who are at home by yourselves, but have other friends that you can be in contact with, I would say don't do too many Zoom calls, but actually arrange for you just to have another human interaction. I think it's important by doing that. But also, like I keep saying, you need to be absolutely kind to yourself. And also, if you're a woman who might be in danger or feeling fear for your life, I think it's important that if you can, I don't know if maybe No Peace, No Justice would be putting a list where women could actually go. I think that'd be really useful. So they can actually go and link and see any refuge or anywhere they can, because, you know, I'm really concerned about that right now, because it's very hard to give advice to a woman right now who might be stuck at home with her perpetrator. And the only thing we could say is, you know, just make that call and ask for help. Women can still ask, even though we're in this situation lockdown, women can still ask for help. There will be someone who will come and help you. I think it's just reminding people that the help is out there. It's just, and I guess to be brave enough to ask for that help. But be very kind to yourself. I know it sounds, I could keep repeating this, but I think it's really important at this stage.
Yeah, thank you, Leyla. Yeah, and another problem about domestic violence, many associations in Italy said that many women who had started an exit path, let's say, so with the psychologists and activities in the centers for abused women, they had to stop because of the lockdown. So they will have...
I'm in the UK. I'm actually part of a group, like it's a harmful traditional practice violence group that the police has now put together, and we get updates every 2 weeks. And I'm going to be, I think we're going to have more women who've died from violence than COVID-19, and I think that's what's going to happen, and that is really worrying. Yeah, and that's quite scary. Yeah,
at a global level, because I've read it.
Yeah. Oh no! More women are going to die because of violence than COVID-19.
Yeah. And Isabella, please, which is your take-home message for us?
Well, I hope that what Leyla is going to say just now is not true. I really strongly hope that it will not the future that we have to see. But I think that this period will be also a very big chance, because I think that we have a very strong lack of community, place or a connection of people. And I think that this period of lockdown will help us to find a way to rebuild something more strictly connected to a sense of or feeling of community. Sharing emotion, sharing thoughts with other people, reduce our impulse towards addiction, power, and also paranoia sometimes. And it probably help us also to stay away from internet and be more connected really with the people. So I think that it could be a very good chance, this one. And we have to work, all of us, we have to work towards this direction. So the message I would like to give is very short. Keep our nerves on. We don't have to delegate our reasoning ability to others in this period, and we have to use this situation like an opportunity.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. I love this kind of optimism, and so it's very important to build. To rebuild a community around this. And Natalia, which is your message for our audience?
First of all, to reinforce our networks. We all have many networks. We need to reinforce them, even if we are locked down. Then we need to make visible what is happening. We need to write. We need to share. We need to talk to people about the realities of many people that are not seen and that we need to share. And third, we need to demand to our government to guarantee everyone's rights. And we have to resist.
Yeah, yeah, we have to resist. Very, very important. Thank you very much. So these conferences are very quick because we know that the audience on internet requires very short conferences. So we got to the end, and I want to thank obviously our panelists for joining us and being here. Thanks to our audience. I was checking if there was any message on Facebook, but we have only hi from Los Angeles, hi from Washington, D.C., and hi from Hanoi. So we don't have specific questions to our panelists. So it's been a pleasure to spend time with you today in my personal lockdown and having the opportunity to face a topic so important to me as a woman and as a journalist, of course. And thanks to No Peace Without Justice Association for hosting this panel. I remind to everybody to follow the news about human rights on their website, which is mpwj.org, and their Facebook pages, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. You will find all the accounts in the cover photo of this event. And please share the hashtag Beyond COVID-19 to follow the other conferences that No Peace Without Justice will organize here on Facebook every Friday, more or less at this time, about some forgotten, let's say, topics around the COVID-19 and the lockdown. So thank you very much to everyone. Have a nice weekend.
Thanks and bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.